Waiting is not wasting when we're waiting on God's plans. See, what we have to get as we kind of go into this season is that preparation is sometimes about what we don't do as much as it's about what we do. For each one of us, we feel like we have to get this rush done, and if we don't get everything just right, and somehow in the midst of all of that rush, we miss the significance of what's really important. So sometimes it means saying no to that holiday party that you really want to go to. Sometimes it means the house won't look just perfect for that family photo. It's going to be okay. Because in the end, we want to leave our legacy as something that's more powerful, something that's more important, and ultimately, especially as we want to pass on our faith to the next generation, something that's way, way, way more memorable. And so this year, as we begin to talk about the first of these 5 topics, as we begin to talk about this topic of hope, our goal is that in the midst of the rush of the season, that we each individually take time to slow things down and to focus on what's really, really significant. So today we launch into week 1, hoping that hope may bloom again. You know, the Bible has a lot to say about hope. I'm stunned each time that I read Scripture and it talks about these passages of hope. I'm stunned because if you look at the Old Testament, the people there had this promise that was coming, but there was nothing concrete about their hope. You see, we can look back 2,000 years after the birth of Jesus, and even though we count on history and books and archaeology to figure out what that looked like, we have a pretty concrete picture of that. They didn't. They had these Old Testament prophecies, what they knew as Scripture at the time. They had these prophecies about the coming of the Messiah. But they didn't know who he was. They didn't know what he was going to look like or where he was going to live. They didn't really know. All they had was this promise. The promise had never been fulfilled. And so the hope they had was not nearly as cemented as the hope that we have today. Even though you and I, we still struggle with that. You and I, we still struggle in the midst of our lives because lives can be convoluted. They can be difficult. And in the midst of that, even though I say that I have hope, sometimes it's very hard for that hope to be real. Sometimes because of how difficult life is. We feel like hope can be gone for a season. We might not describe ourselves as hopeless because that seems a little more solid than just losing hope. But at some point in the midst of our life, we can start to feel like, man, I've lost hope. I've been through this pain, and I had hoped that it was going to get better. I was in a relationship, and the relationship was falling apart, and I'd hoped that it was going to get better, and it didn't. I had hoped that the diagnosis was going to come across better than it did, and it didn't. I had hoped that my financial picture would get better, and it didn't. And so because of that, we can identify with a hope that's tough to grasp. In fact, by the end of the message, we're going to talk about how faith and hope have to counterbalance each other. That one gives a concrete foundation and the other gives vitality to our Christian experience. Both of those are essential. But